this year.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
Me!
Presented by Bigelow Tea, Jackson Lumber, Blue Moonlight, Wellesley Testosterone, FindMazMoney.com, Gem Plumbing, and by Golf. On Boston's home for sports, 98.5, the Sports Hub.
Around baseball, guys, a lot of people thought that Devers' contract was untradeable. It's $254.5 million through 2033. If the guy's going to be a first base or DH, those aren't the sorts of dollars you tend to see, even for a hitter as talented as Devers. And yet, earlier this week, there were conversations going on between the Giants and the Red Sox about potential other deals. Devers' name came up, and something came together very quickly. The timing of it was just horrendous for Red Sox fans. Just abominable. They're feeling good about themselves. Finally, Pat. Yeah. They sweep the Yankees.
We're back.
Yeah, exactly. Roman Anthony is up. Christian Campbell's up. Marcelo Meyer's up. The future is here. It's now. Everything's going to be built around the kids and Devers.
Not anymore. Devers in San Francisco.
No,
so here we go again, Red Sox followers. Same old. 617-779-0985. Obviously, by now you know Rafael Devers dealt to the San Francisco Giants for 4 minor leaguers, some of whom may be classified as prospects, some of whom may not be classified as prospects, but you get the idea. Devers out. It certainly feels like the Red Sox are pulling the plug on the 2025 season. Now, anything's possible, but if you're asking me, bad message to the fan base with this deal. Horrible message to the fan base, which is why 24 hours later, the Red Sox still haven't said anything. So, we're expecting a lot of you to call tonight. So I ask you, when we punch you up, just try to be brief, get to the point. Okay? And we'll take as many calls as we can over the course of the hour tonight because, again, you don't make deals like this. You don't see deals like this very, very often. So one way or another, and this is a complicated deal in some ways because there are parts of it that you like and parts of it that you don't. And we can certainly divide all of that up. You don't like the return. You don't like Devers and the way he acted. You don't like ownership and the way they have performed or acted over the last several years with Mookie Betts out the door, Xander Bogaerts out the door. Kyle Schwarber comes in and then goes out. They sign only injured guys. They could have had Max Fried. They ended up with Walker Buehler. You get the idea. So we can pick apart all the smaller, singular things as it pertains to the Red Sox. Again, I like the move because I didn't want Devers here, but I don't like the return. On a story like this, all of those things run together. They all end up in one pile, and many of them run counter to one another. So here's what I would tell you. Whether you like particular aspects of the deal or not, or whether you dislike particular aspects of the deal or not, at this point, we've broken down all aspects and facets of the trade for the most part. I'll certainly take your calls on it. I'm not going to say no. But I will also tell you, you can't sit here now and say, well, I'm glad they got rid of Devers, but I feel like they're giving up on the season. At the end of the day, it all comes together. It all comes in one big ball. So the way it went down, the way it is, going back to the offseason, Devers' actions, it's all part of the story. Are you happy or are you unhappy? Me personally, I'll tell you what the driving force is for me almost always. And I can never say anything's an absolute because you just don't know. There are occasions where you might think differently than you normally would because the circumstances has changed, the rules have changed, the league has changed, whatever it is. And you say, if it asked me this 10 years ago, I would have done it this way, but now I choose this. And don't underestimate the fact that you have changed. You might not think the same way you did 10 years ago because Red Sox ownership certainly doesn't. So I'll tell you this. I will never, ever get excited about the Red Sox dumping a player or losing a player because they can't pay him. Ever. I think that sets a bad precedent. I think it sends a bad message. And at the end of the day, it gets in the way of the only thing I care about. Winning. What I care about is the winning. And in baseball, as much as people want to toss around and talk about things like culture and camaraderie and chemistry and all of that, all of which I believe in, by the way, at the end of the day, you win championships with talent in baseball. And it's not absolute. There are teams with lesser talent that have won titles. Even here in Boston, the 2013 Red Sox were not a great team by a lot of measures, but they won the World Series that year. I would tell you, of all 4 World Series winners that the Red Sox had, that was the worst team. The other 3 teams would have kicked their ass. And you know why? Because they had talent even when they had a-holes on the roster. And they had a couple of a-holes. The most famous of which was Manny Ramirez. And you were able to win. Now again, that team had veteran players that could handle Manny. This one doesn't to handle Devers. I get it. I understand all those details. But ultimately, I'd put the premium on winning. And I admit I'm reacting a little bit to an exchange I had with longtime friends of mine whom I respect greatly as people. So I've heard a million different arguments as it pertains to this Devers deal. I want to win. I want a team that wins. And to compare it to a football locker room or a hockey team standing up for one another and one guy fighting for another guy, or a basketball team that shares the ball, sets picks, and plays defense, it doesn't work that way in baseball. Nobody has someone else's back. Not really. It's a succession and compilation of one-on-one matchups. That's pretty much what the game is. So tell me, what team play in baseball comes close to a double team block, a pick, a defensive switch? Like, you tell me what thing in baseball is a true team play where, again, someone is directly affecting the success of a teammate with a good block or a good play. It just doesn't really happen. Relay plays, maybe. It's about individual one-on-one talent. The whole game is built on one-on-one matchups and on players doing the jobs that they are assigned to do. Second baseman turns double plays, fields the ball, makes a good feed. But it's not like he carries the shortstop to second base or can get in the way of a base runner to help the shortstop out. Can't do that stuff. I want good players who cost money and oftentimes have attitudes. There's a line somewhere with everyone where you don't want to deal with them anymore. I get it. But at the end of the day, I cannot celebrate this move. Can't do it. So if you hate Rafael Devers and you wanted him gone, that's fine. Just don't tell me that it makes you better as a team. Maybe in the long run it will, but immediately, you're without the guy that's been the best hitter on your team now. So, enough from me. 617-779-0985. We'll kick it off with Bill in Texas, who says there is collateral damage to the trade. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, the thing I'm worried about mostly, Tony, is collateral damage. I've been listening to Major League GMs all day and Major League players. I don't think anybody's going to want to come to Boston, because our owners, our front office is so arrogant, they think they're smarter than everybody else in baseball, and they're just not. Why would you come to Boston to play ball to get abused by these people?
Okay, so, Bill, the answer is that because if you can win, you'll go anywhere. And so the bigger problem is not the way the Red Sox are handling their players. It's the fact that they're handling it this way and they're not winning. That's what it is. So you want to tell me they want to run it like the Tampa Bay Rays? And when I say the Tampa Bay Rays, Tampa Bay can't even keep their guys when they go to arbitration. Okay? Most of them. The Red Sox can. So what they're going to avoid is that just gigantic contract, the mega contract that pays $300 million to Rafael Devers or $350 to Mookie Betts or $280 to Xander Bogaerts. They don't want to pay those deals. If they can pump out minor leaguers on a regular basis and stock their system every year and become the best drafting team in the history of the sport, fine, no problem. They'll win. I'll be happy. But I would tell you the odds of that are slim. And since they've gone to this approach, which was after the 2018-2019 season, they've kind of sucked at it. They've now gone through a couple of GMs already. So I think it's harder to do in a market like this than it is in Tampa. So can they do it with a bigger payroll than Tampa Bay? Yes, they can. Can they do it successfully? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. Let's not forget how they've won here over the years. Their team payrolls have always been in the top 5 when they've won World Series. I don't think that's a coincidence. Alex in Brookline. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, Tony. Originally, I was upset, but I mean, I'm sure you can relate. I'm a buffoon, and I don't know what I'm looking at, and maybe I'm missing something with this Harrison kid. He's a 23-year-old potential starter. I don't think he's optioned to AA or AAA to because of a talent issue. I think he's there to settle into Massachusetts and not be with the team, and will be shortly. But he was a 22-year-old starter. He struck out 11 guys on his initial first start. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Starting pitcher is important. What I'm questioning is what is this potential next rumored move to bring in a guy that is a big contract guy? And does that mean we're giving up Roman Anthony for the next guy? And who do you see as that guy that's going to come in? Is it another star?
So, Alex, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to let you go because you're just starting to repeat yourself. Here's what I would tell you. I'm done worrying about who the next guy is to come in with the big contract. I'm done with that. Why would you think they're going to do this? Alex Bregman, they just brought in on a series of one-year contracts. The only reason Alex Bregman is here is because he was willing to, or he negotiated for a series of one-year deals. Now he's hurt, but if he had a big year this year, he was going back on the market. And if he has a big year next year, he's going back on the market. And he's gone. So I would worry less about that and worry about whether or not they can evaluate and develop players properly. Now, as for the guys they got in the deal, we're going to play J.P. Ricciardi for you when we come back. You'll hear that. J.P. Ricciardi was a long-time evaluator with the Oakland A's during Moneyball. And he's someone that, aside from being generally respected throughout baseball, was respected by evaluators. Okay, he was a terrific scout. Became general manager of the Blue Jays. Certainly brought some good talent into that organization, and then he was fired up there and he's moved around. But generally speaking, he's a good evaluator. So J.P. Ricciardi was asked to assess the trade, which I want to do as well when we come back. Because to me, this trade was pretty simple. I think there was one clear objective on the part of the Red Sox and one clear objective on the part of the San Francisco Giants. Okay, so we all get bogged down in the window dressing and the bells and whistles and all the ancillary parts of the deal, but there was one motivating factor, really, for each team. So we'll get J.P. Ricciardi's assessment of the trade from the standpoint of who came back to the Red Sox, and we'll also look at what those two objectives were when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
starter or maybe a bullpen piece. Jordan Hicks is a bullpen piece. He's failed as a starter. The kid that they got from Tibbs' kid from Florida State has really struggled in high A, and his main thing that he can do is hit, and he hasn't done that. He's probably a bat-only guy at this point. So when I look at it from an evaluation standpoint, I think the Giants clearly won the trade. But this runs a lot deeper than just that. And what it tells me is the Red Sox really wanted to get rid of Rafael Devers, because I think if they put him on the market, they could have got a better package back. I think if you waited to the trading deadline or in the offseason, you could have got a better package. But I think he must be becoming somewhat of a nuisance in the clubhouse, in the sense that the young players, this is not the guy that should be the leader for them. But it's a heck of an offensive player that you just gave up.
It's J.P. Ricciardi, longtime baseball evaluator, scout, and executive in the game. Just tells you about the four players the Red Sox got back. Jordan Hicks is 28. Okay, he's not a prospect. He's 28. Tibbs was the 13th pick in the 2024 draft. J.P. Ricciardi describes him potentially as bat only, although he hasn't even hit yet really an A-ball, which is a bad sign. Bat only means DH, as if the Red Sox don't have enough of those. They have a 20-year-old kid in A-ball as a pitcher. His name's Bello, B-E-L-L-O, just like Brian Bello. But that's a lottery ticket. Kyle Hendricks got some talent. J.P. Ricciardi says he projects as a number 4 starter. That's what you got. Which brings me to the two objectives, and then I'll get to Julian McWilliams of CBS Sports, formerly of the Boston Globe, who will join us to talk about the trade as well. We'll get to your calls. We'll mix those in too, so don't go anywhere. The two objectives in this deal, to me, are pretty clear. The Red Sox wanted to dump money. They wanted to dump the Devers contract. If Devers were making less and he were a bargain instead of highly paid at his position, he'd still be here. That's my belief. Because the Red Sox would have looked at him as a value and they would have said, we'll put up with it. For example, not entirely apples to apples, but Jarren Duran has had some kind of issues with fans and fighting, and there were some gay slurs that he yelled one day at people in the stands, was arguing with the fans in Kansas City, and maybe those are maturity issues. He makes, what, $800,000-900,000 a year? Is he making $1 million yet, Jimmy? Something like that? Oh, they'll keep him. They'll keep him. He's a headache, that's okay. And he plays hard. Devers is paid to hit, and he hits. But he makes $30 million, he's out the door. And for San Francisco, their objective in the deal, beat Los Angeles. So they'll take on the contract, and they didn't have to give up much to get the player because they took on the contract. So you tell me, whose objectives do you like more? Do you like the Red Sox who wanted to dump the money? Or do you like the Giants who want to beat the Dodgers? As a fan, you tell me which you'd prefer. You want a team you like, or do you want a team that wins? Because in this case, you can't pick both. Julian McWilliams now joins us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline, now of CBS Sports. So, Julian, you tell me, what's the reaction been in baseball about this trade?
Maz, I think for the most part, it's been shock, but it's also been something along the lines of people saying this had to happen. Rafael Devers has been a nuisance in that clubhouse and in this organization for probably, I think it started toward the end of last year when he became a little bit surly. Even with the media, with the team the team has asked him to do certain things, for promotional stuff. He doesn't do it. And really, it was enabled throughout the Hein Bloom era. It was enabled throughout the Craig Breslow era. It was enabled by, in some capacity, Alex Cora, calling him, saying he's just still a kid. He's still a kid. So a lot of it is just still shock because of the fact that it happened and the way it happened and something that happened. It's funny, I got a text and it said, something's going to happen that might shock you. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe Roman Anthony gets sent down. Maybe Christian Campbell gets sent down. But I didn't expect this. When you knew the Mookie trade was happening, you knew it was going to happen at some point because it was made so public. The Red Sox essentially said, we're keeping this under wraps, and we want, like you said, we want to dump the contract, we want to dump Rafael Devers, and we want to get some grown-ups in the room.
So, Julian, let's go back to what you said at the very beginning when you said this has been building since the end of last year, where they were asking him to make appearances and things of the like. Can you elaborate at all on that? So has he always been difficult to deal with from the team's standpoint because he was uncooperative? Is that a good word?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example, man. So during spring training last year, the Red Sox had something set up for Jordan's furniture, for he just had to hold a bat. And I think he's going to get something crazy like $200,000, something like that, to just hold a bat. Don't quote me on that, but he agreed. Rafael Devers agreed. And then the people show up at spring training for him to do whatever he has to do. Devers says, I'm not doing it, and leaves the stadium. Davison Perez then goes back and gets him and talks to him. Davison has that relationship with him and says, hey, come on, man, you got to do this. Devers finally comes back to the stadium and does it. But there's been situations where he just won't do things. I remember last year, and granted, I don't care if you talk to us or not, the media or not. Like, Rafael Devers does not make my story, right? His quotes aren't that electrifying that he makes my story. But I remember one time last year during the Mets series, he made us wait for an hour and a half probably in the clubhouse as he just sat there and just said, no, I'm not talking finally afterwards. So it's little things like that that's been able throughout the organization. And I think it's really, really started because he's never had to do anything. He had J.D. Martinez there. He had Xander Bogaerts there. He had Jackie Bradley Jr. there at some point. He had Mookie Betts there. So once they gave him this contract and they say, hey, now it's time for you to grow up. Well, it doesn't really work like that because you guys never ingrained that in him in the first place. You guys called him the smiley, lovable kid all the time who can hit. And if you have a guy who's the face of your franchise, or the highest paid player of your franchise, you need him to do certain things, and Devers just didn't want to do them.
Okay, so Julian, my counter to that would be, shouldn't the Red Sox have known a lot of this then? If they wanted all this stuff as part of the deal, shouldn't they have known it before they gave him the contract that they gave him?
Yes, but I mean, Maz, it was a desperation move. Look, they let Xander Bogaerts walk, and I don't care about the $280 million contract, right? That's fine. He got his money, and we all know it's a bad contract. You could have got him at 150, 160. Xander would have stayed easily. And so, but you let him get to free agency, and he goes to San Diego. And granted, he's not played well, but I think that's partly because Xander needs Boston, right? I think Xander loved being in Boston. The Mookie Betts thing, you don't want to give him his number, so you let him go. It was kind of like Devers was the last person who you could sort of give the money to, and it was a complete overpay. I reported yesterday, I said, Chaim Bloom that wasn't Chaim Bloom's decision. That was ownership's decision. Chaim Bloom had trepidation about signing Devers to that long-term deal, probably for those reasons. They know he can't be a face of a franchise. They know he can't do certain things. But what comes with that is the pressure that ownership felt to do something because this fan base was so angry at them for letting the other guys go.
Right. Okay, look, let me ask you this, too, because obviously there are a lot of angles on this story. So what about in the clubhouse? So, and I say that because, okay, so he's jousting with Breslow. He's jousting with team employees with regard to appearances with sponsors. Maybe he's even jousting with Sam Kennedy or John Henry, depending on what happened in the meeting in Kansas City. How was his relationship with teammates? Was there any dysfunction in the clubhouse with teammates?
I wouldn't call it dysfunction per se, but I think it was the big elephant in the room. And here's why, right? I think people as a person, people like Rafael Devers. As a person, I like Rafael Devers, but I think he's selfish in some sense. So they bring Alex Bregman in to be the adult in the room because they said, hey, we're going to make Jarren Duran the leader. Well, you can't do that. He's calling people slurs and stuff like that. We can't do that. So they quickly took a detour from that. They said, hey, we're going to make Rafael Devers a leader because he's the highest paid player. Well, the highest paid player isn't always your leader, right? We know that. It just doesn't always work like that. And Devers is a clear example of that. And then so they say, we need somebody in this clubhouse who can win, who knows how to win. You go through this entire roster, with the exception of Walker Buehler and Alex Bregman, and I'm not including Rafael Devers in that because he was a kid at the time who was a platoon player getting pinch hit for Eduardo Nunez in the World Series. He's not a part of that group of people that know how to win. So they said, I'm going to bring in Alex Bregman because this guy knows how to win. He knows how to be a leader. He knows how to face the music. He knows how to win. Well, the highest paid player now has a gripe with Alex Bregman being a third baseman. So what does that do? Alex Bregman's then walking on eggshells. So he can't necessarily be the leader that they brought him in to be because of Rafael Devers. So there's that entire situation, that scenario going on. And then you have players looking around saying, what are we doing? Players talk, right? Players talk around the league. And around the league, the general opinion on the Red Sox is that it's a mess and that they don't know what they're doing. This doesn't happen with the Dodgers. This doesn't happen with the Giants. This doesn't happen with the Yankees. But there always seems to be something in Boston that makes it, for at least the last 6-7 years, that makes it sort of this laughing stock. And you can't have that in a premier market like this.
Okay, so Julian, before we let you go, let me ask you one more quickly. Does the removal of did he have to go? Did Devers have to go? In your mind, was he getting in the way of the winning? Because I personally find that hard to believe, but you tell me.
I think so. I think he did have to go. I think he wanted to go too. I think Devers was checked out. And if you got a guy that's checked out, even though he's put up the numbers that he's doing, that he put up, I think you over the long haul, it's a better decision for the organization. Am I saying that fans shouldn't be upset? Of course they should be upset. Had they paid Mookie Betts, they wouldn't even been in this situation where they felt like they had to pay Devers. Devers could have signed his $150, $200 million deal to stay with the Red Sox and be happy and just be the kid who just likes to hit and go home, right? That could have very well happened, but the organization put them in this situation. I'll say this too, man, on the adults in the room. I think this organization notices that there are certain things and certain flaws that they have now, saying like, hey, we need some guys that know how to win and know how to be here. Jerry Duran, I know people bring him up and saying, well, he's going to rally the troops and get everybody to play, to say, hey, everybody against the world. Don't be shocked if Jerry Duran is the next name on there. Don't be shocked, because for what he brings to the game, I spoke to a scout with the Twins a few weeks ago, and he said, who was checking in on the offseason, and the general opinion of Duran from former employees of the Red Sox who got laid off, the general opinion was good player, too high maintenance. The Red Sox want to get rid of all that.
Yeah. Well, again, and nobody likes the high maintenance players, Julian. The problem is that a lot of them have talent. There's a reason they're high maintenance, and the other teammates have to keep them in line, and obviously the Red Sox don't have that kind of nucleus anymore. So listen, I could talk to you about this all night, Julian. I mean, really, but unfortunately, we're limited to 1 hour on this program. For those of you who don't know, Julian used to work at the Globe, the Boston Globe. Now you can read his stuff on CBSSports.com, and he obviously has reporting and opinion up there already on the Devers trade. So listen, thanks a lot. We'll catch up with you soon, all right?
All right, thanks, Matt.
Okay, there you go. Julian McWilliams, kind enough to join us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. Kevin Maggiorio, get you caught up on headlines. Don't go anywhere when we come back. I promise I see you all lined up. It's a big story. Your phone calls when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
Now he's a third baseman. He's a third baseman for the Boston Red Sox.
Alex, when do you expect Rafi to be back?
Rafi was here this morning. Yeah. He worked out early and he took off.
We're preparing Rafi to play third base. That's part of the progression. He'll DH here and there.
The GM and the manager know where I stand. I've been put out there as someone who's bad for the organization.
Swing and a miss. Down he goes again. 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts.
Is he in shape?
Might we see Rafi begin taking some ground balls at first base?
First and third.
Cora said that Rafi is not going to play any third base.
I don't think, me personally, it's the best decision after, they asked me to play a different position, and I don't even have 2 months playing this position to all of a sudden have me try to play another position. They can't expect me to play, every single position out there. It was a GM that I spoke with. I'm not certain what he has with me. He played ball, and I would like to think that he knows that, changing positions like that isn't easy. They should do their jobs essentially and hit the market and look for another player. Like they've told me I'm a little hard-headed. They already asked me to change once, and this time I don't think I can be as flexible. I don't understand some of the decisions that the GM makes. Next thing you know, someone in the outfield gets hurt and they want me to play in the outfield.
We think we had a productive conversation. John seems to have had a productive conversation.
Devers swings, that's by Hill, and this is going to be a close one, but no, Devers is thrown out. You'll get a chance to see Alex Cora's reaction when Devers comes off the field. Okay, and then sort of a look of shock.
Rafi, good to see him taking ground balls, and we know that, when the time is right, if we need him, he'll be there.
All the drama, distractions, all that stuff is behind you and behind the team from earlier.
Yeah, so best of. Yeah,
Now, just say quickly, too, you heard in there that montage put together by Jimmy Stewart, our producer, all the nonsense that took place with Devers during the course of this season. I do want to I now look differently on that play in New York where he dribbled the ball up the first baseline and then stopped halfway down, and Alex Cora looked at him sideways when he came back to the dugout. Cora, from what I understand, Cora was done with Devers by the end. He was done. Checked out. Like, okay, fine, you're going to be like this. Get out of here. We're done. Now, I'm sure Cora has wanted other guys gone that they haven't gotten rid of. So I'm just telling you that I think whatever protection Cora was giving Devers before the end had dissipated. It wasn't there anymore, and he certainly wasn't going to go to bat for Devers. So I think that was out. But I do wonder, that thing at Yankee Stadium where he didn't run out the ball, when it shows up on the field, I do wonder whether that was some sort of catalyst. In retrospect, did the Red Sox look at that and go, oh, this is what you're going to pull now? And then that was it. They moved him. Again, let me make this part clear. I'd have kept him. I don't love the Red Sox pattern when it comes to these star players. They wouldn't pay Devers. They wouldn't pay Bogarts. Now they're trading, who did I say? Betts. They didn't want to pay Betts. They didn't want to pay Bogarts. Now they're trading Devers so they can unload the contract. They don't like any of these deals. So they're going to build it like the Tampa Bay Rays, where they're constantly changing roster and turning over people in the minor leagues. And if the players who come up don't want to take their contract offers, they're gone too. And that means Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer and whoever else. You better hope that Christian Campbell can play. They've already signed him. If he goes sideways, they're going to look like asses for that contract too. And in some ways, they already do. Eric in Bellingham. Eric, just be quick, please. We got a lot of people on the line tonight.
Hi, Tony. I got to say, I think it's despicable what they're doing. It's okay. In spring training, we got Garrett Crochet, we got Bregman, and now they do this. It's like they had us thinking that we were going for the playoffs, and then they just dumped the whole team.
So, Eric, look, I agree with you again. It pulls the rug out on the 25 season, whether they think that's true or not. Now, if Roman Anthony starts to hit right away, adapts quickly to the big leagues, they may not miss Devers at all. I don't know. I can't predict that. Hard to know. But I would tell you that typically young players need a little time to adapt. So do I think that Anthony's all of a sudden going to become what Devers is at this moment? No. Could he in another year or two? Sure. Brian's in Drake. Brian, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Maz? Thanks for taking the call. Real quick, I just want to know, now that Devers is gone, do you think instead of continuing to platoon guys like Myers and Anthony, are they going to let them play every day, or are they going to keep sitting them against lefties?
So, Brian, good question. I think there's now more, obviously with Devers gone, there's flexibility to move people to different spots and do all kinds of stuff with that DH spot. So you could put Myers at second, DH Campbell. Jimmy Stewart, our producer, said, don't be surprised if Campbell DHs tonight. So I don't know, maybe Jimmy's got a little insight.
He's in the lineup. He's batting ninth, and he's the DH tonight.
Okay, so he is batting ninth as the DH. Sam Kennedy and Craig Breslow are going to speak at 8 o'clock. Maybe they give us some insight as to what Alex Cora is thinking, although I'm sure Cora is going to do that on his own in Seattle tonight when he speaks to the media. So we'll have more answers tomorrow. Not every answer, but we get to see some of the lineups too. So, yes, they have more flexibility to have the kids play, but remember that kids are inconsistent. Jackson Shrewsbury. Jack, go ahead.
Hey, Maz, the further we get from the Mookie trade, the more I'm feeling this is more like Babe Ruth 2.0. You know, they start the century off hottest team in ball. They sell off their best guy for cash considerations. Fast forward 100 years. Do the same thing. 2018, win the World Series, trade off. Now the Dodgers are making the World Series. The Red Sox got these mediocre teams. And I'm just kind of afraid that they're going to find themselves in this wormhole of cheap ownership, and they're just going to be putting together mediocre teams, just good enough to keep the fans interested and just enough to make money, but not to actually win anything important. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, Jack, I think that's what everybody fears. Again, the ballpark is a gold mine. If they become an 86-win team every year, they're in the playoff hunt. You're the Seattle Mariners. You make the playoffs. Out-of-towners will always go to Fenway Park, even if the locals don't anymore. There'll be a reasonably decent product, and the ballpark will be filled, and they'll make their money, but they won't win anything. Because I wonder whether or not they will go the extra mile to win anymore. And winning requires sacrifice from everybody, including ownership and upper management. So if you ask me right now, I would guess that I still think there's dysfunction between Alex Cora and Craig Breslow. One of them's going to go, and I don't think it's going to be Breslow. Jeff in Norwood. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Tony, I have to be honest. I don't think it was a salary dump as much as it was an attitude dump. They have too many kids in the clubhouse and the dugout that need leadership, and they thought this guy was going to be a cancer and add toxicity to that lineup or to the roster and the clubhouse, and they needed to move away from that. It just so happens that he's the wealthiest player.
Yeah, Jeff, don't hang up. I just put you on hold. Let me ask you the question. If Rafael Devers was making $8 million a year and for dollar was the most productive DH in the game, do you think they would have moved him? Oh, he's gone. He hung up. So I told him not to hang up. The money was a factor. Jimmy, do we have that cut from the guy at Baseball America that we played late in the day on the essence of the deal and what other options? Now, it's a little unclear whether he's talking about the negotiations with the Giants or whether another team was involved. What's his name again, Jimmy? It's like, I don't remember.
I don't remember. Baseball America scout.
Yep, there you go. It's a Baseball America, minor league evaluator.
The conversation we have to have is unloading that contract to them. In their eyes, is that the best deal possible? Because I think it was. And, what I've been told is that there was another deal where they were taking on some of the money. I do not know what pieces were included within that particular deal. That was vetoed by John Henry. And the reason it was vetoed is because they had to take on money.
You get that? They were discussing other options that the Red Sox could have made, but they vetoed the deal because the other team wouldn't take the full contract. If the deal was about getting the toxicity, to use the caller's words, out of the clubhouse, why wouldn't the Red Sox say to the Giants, hey, you know what? We'll eat half the money, but you give us better prospects? Why wouldn't they do that? You know why? Because they wanted to move the money. They didn't want to pay the guy. They wanted him out, but what they really wanted out was the contract. They didn't want the contract anymore, so he was out. If the contract was not the issue, they would have happily taken better prospects and eaten some of the money. They didn't do that. They dumped the deal. Okay, they dumped the contract because they wanted to get rid of the money. We'll wrap it up when we come back in the Baseball Hour.
This is 98.5, the Sports Hub.
Infield's pulled in for Meyer. Showed off the glove in the top of this inning. Now lifts a fly ball the other way for Dominguez. Story tags. Here he comes. Dominguez throws for the plate. It is not in time. Sacrifice fly Marcelo Meyer. 4-0 Boston. With a small ball there. Double, a sacrifice bunt, and a sacrifice fly.
So let me just say this quickly. We'll try to squeeze in one more call. For those of you whom I don't get to, we're going to have a long week talking about Rafael Devers. Red Sox back on the field tonight in Seattle. The sad part is, not that I shouldn't even say it like that. One of the odd parts of this whole story, they're playing their best baseball of the year right now. They've played 5 good games in a row. 5. They've won them all. And that's not the reason I'm telling you that they've played 5 good games in a row. I'm telling you the style of the games. 3-1, 4-3, 2-1, 4-3, 2-0. They're pitching well. They're playing defense. They actually even manufactured runs, which we just played for you. They were up 3-0 against the Yankees on Saturday. Got a leadoff double. You know what Cora did? Bunted the guy to third. That was Rafael, I believe, who put the bunt down. And then Marcelo Meyer hit a sacrifice fly to get the runner home. Baseball. Simple, station to station, one-run game type of baseball. They ended up winning the game 4-3. So that run was the game-winning run. Seemed like nothing at the time, but that one extra run won you the game. That's the kind of stuff they did over the weekend. And so what happens? Out comes the rug from under your feet. Squeeze in one more. Robin in Fort Lauderdale. Go ahead, Robin.
Yes, Maz. Why is it that this town doesn't get any value for their assets? Garoppolo. I know this is a baseball show, but Garoppolo, Brady, Gronk, Betts, now Devers. Something called Baines in an NBA got 5 first-round draft picks. What is wrong with our GMs?
Okay, so look, it's a good question, but I'm going to stick to the baseball part of it, and you don't have to go to the other sports to do that. They didn't get enough for Mookie Betts. They got nothing for Bogarts. They didn't get really enough for Devers. And I'm sure there are others that I'm leaving out. The Red Sox have mismanaged some of their assets. Not all, but some. And I would even tell you that some of the guys they get in here, like Nick Pivetta, he left and went to San Diego, and it feels like he pitches better there than he does here. Nathan Eovaldi's pitching, he pitched well here too, but got better in Texas. So what is it about what they're doing specifically with their pitchers that allows them to get better? Because again, you know why I think they're pitching well now? Because they're throwing hard stuff. They're not throwing a lot of that spin bull crap nonsense that they've been doing for the last year and a half. And all of a sudden, you know what? They got hitters on their heels and they're winning low-scoring games. What did you know? Interesting concept. Actually throw harder, not softer. Anyway, we'll continue the discussion tomorrow night. Devers will be with the Giants obviously soon and facing the Red Sox this weekend, in case you hadn't heard that. Red Sox are in San Francisco after Seattle, so head-to-head with Rafael Devers at the end of the week.
Tony, I'm told that Joe Murray is planning on carrying the Sam Kennedy, Craig Breslow media availability live.
Okay, excellent. So there you have it on Joe Murray's show tonight. He'll be in the studio here in a matter of seconds. 8 o'clock, the Zoom press conference with Craig Breslow and Sam Kennedy live right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Kevin Majori's got your headlines. We'll catch you tomorrow.
From the Telfair Type Studios, WBZ-FM and HD1. It's not just the games. It's Toucher and Hardy, Zolak and Bertrand, Felger and Maz, Joe Murray. For Boston sports fans, it's 98.5 The Sports Hub.